Welcome to Radio Express World News, presented by Vibha Ramesh, Los Angeles, United States. Today's report commences with a ray of hope as Johnson & Johnson started its final stage of clinical trials for a potential coronavirus vaccine in the United States. The trials, which began on Monday, will be the largest with an enrollment of 60,000 participants. Compared to the vaccine developed by two other forerunners, Pfizer and Moderna, Johnson & Johnson has some distinct advantages. While their vaccination routine may involve the administration of only one dose, vaccines developed by Pfizer and Moderna would require two doses given a few weeks apart. Secondly, Johnson & Johnson's vaccine would survive under refrigeration and not require a sub-zero storage temperature unlike the ones being developed by its competitors. For the first time in the 137-year history of the Metropolitan Opera, the 2020-2021 season stands cancelled due to the still untamed pandemic. Further, the famous ball drop event at Times Square on New Year's Eve is going to be replaced by virtual events with a small group of people reflecting the themes, challenges and inspirations of 2020. 6 months after the unfortunate killing of Breonna Taylor by 3 Louisville police, one of them was indicted of the crime. In effect, Brett Hank Eisen was charged on Wednesday for recklessly firing his gun during a raid in her apartment on March 13th. On Wednesday, France tightened its restrictions on public gatherings in several cities and also elevated its COVID-19 alert level across the country with the hope of preventing an influx of patients. In all likelihood, the new measures would come into force in the following days and would include the complete closure of all bars and restaurants in Aix-en-Provence and Marseille. Further, public gatherings in Paris will be limited to 10 people or less, said the health minister at a news conference. He also stated that the situation in France was grave and deteriorating. Over to Spain, the country is in the midst of a deadly surge of coronavirus cases and has already reinstated another lockdown. Now, the city of Madrid is seeking urgent military and logistics help from the central government with a request to set up emergency tents for the homeless and to disinfect public spaces. In addition, the deputy head of the Madrid region, Ignacio Aguado, would be deploying around 220 more police officers to ensure that residents comply with the new restrictions and follow all the lockdown rules. And in Saudi Arabia, beginning October 4th, Saudi citizens and residents would be allowed to visit Mecca's Grand Mosque. However, according to the Associated Press, only 6,000 people would be allowed entry per day owing to the still prevalent crisis, and the quota might be raised later in the month. And for Muslim travelers coming from abroad to visit the holy city, the doors will open in November as announced by the government. And in China, the Foreign Ministry announced that starting next week, foreigners with valid residence permits will be permitted entry into China without having to apply for new visas. Meanwhile, in India, the Parliament passed the Jammu and Kashmir Official Languages Bill 2020 yesterday to include Kashmiri, Hindi and Dogri to the list of official languages in the Union Territory. The Rajya Sabha also passed the Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment Bill 2020, which is intended to curtail the role of foreign funds in Indian politics. If the bill gets approved, then moving forward, office bearers of NGOs will have to provide identity proof such as Aadhaar for registration, and foreigners will be required to furnish their passport or OCI card. In Northern Ireland, the 6-month ban on pubs was lifted yesterday, wherein around 600 drinks-only pubs reopened on Wednesday, while pubs serving food were allowed to reopen in July. Having said that, pub owners are still wary of the reopening permit as Prime Minister Boris Johnson had issued the 10 p.m. closure order for all pubs, bars and restaurants in England beginning Thursday. In effect, Northern Ireland will make an informed decision after careful consideration whether to implement a curfew on hospitality venues. Moving on to Britain, the senior cabinet minister Michael Gove issued a decree that would now require truck drivers to possess a Kent access permit to get into the county from January 1st. The proposal was supposed to be approved at a meeting of the Exit Operating Committee last week. In the words of Gove, we want to make sure that people use a relatively simple process in order to get what will become known as a Kent access permit. He further confirmed that the de facto Brexit order is applicable to all truck drivers, British or foreign, that intend to arrive in Kent. Amidst over a month-long protests over the rigged election process, Belarus autocrat Alexander Lukashenko swore in as president for yet another term. The swearing-in ceremony took place in a discreet manner in Minsk without any prior announcement. The move was immediately denounced as illegitimate by opposition leaders and European politicians. In an address to the gathering on Wednesday, Lukashenko said, "The day in which the president takes office, the day of the inauguration, is the day of our joint victory, a convincing and momentous victory." Moving on, Iran's arbitrary detention of dual nationals and treatment of political prisoners was condemned by 3 countries. To this extent, France, Germany and the United Kingdom called upon the Iranian ambassador to the UK on Tuesday to address the abusive nature of the policy. The Iranian ambassadors in Paris and Berlin will be summoned next week. This will be the first collaborative move made by 3 nations against Iranian human rights abuses. Ending today's bulletin, the European Commission is contemplating a revamp of Europe's asylum and migration rules, which has remained unchanged for the last 4 years. To this end, the Commission may abandon the mandatory refugee quota and replace it with a new one that would allow the European Union to choose whether to accept refugees or take up the responsibility of returning those that were denied asylum to their home countries. In effect, the European Union would offer 10,000 euros to countries that would take in refugees or asylum seekers rescued in the Mediterranean Sea. With that, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Thank you for joining us. Please stay tuned for the next program on Radio Express. To receive Radio Express English news and English programs in your WhatsApp, please send a WhatsApp message, English programs, to 90727 95547. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Radio Express. Thank you.